Welcome, you're watching Ranting Lunacy. This is your host, Dane Itson, and I have a special guest with me, Chris Beam from the Samaritan Counseling Center. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dane. Glad to be here.
Okay. Now, some people may not know who you are, and so tell them where you're from and what you do.
Sure. My name is Chris Beam. I am the director of the Samaritan Counseling Center. We're a nonprofit, faith-based counseling center here in Bainbridge, and we are called the Samaritan Counseling Center of Southwest Georgia, meaning we want to be able to reach and to help the whole area, here in Southwest Georgia.
Okay. Now, where did you go to school?
I went to Georgia Southern, and then after that, a few years later, I went to Asbury Seminary and got a master's in counseling and a master's in Christian education.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this type of work?
I've been doing counseling for about 13 years.
13 years?
Yeah.
So you have quite a bit of experience.
I'd like to think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where did you do counseling work before you came to Bainbridge?
I actually lived in Dominican Republic for about 8 years.
Dominican Republic?
Yeah. Kind of mission work, but at the same time working with a lot of high-risk, at-risk youth. Kids who were just out of control, had been in trouble in the school system, in the legal system, had been in court, had been through juvie at different times, some of the kids. And so just working with those kids there before that.
Well, that's a different culture, isn't it?
Oh, very much, very much.
How is it different from here?
Well, here we have carpet on the floor and we have air conditioning. And those are two big changes that I really appreciate.
So you're not really talking down about them, it's just the way things are.
It's just different. It's a tropical environment. It's a great place to live. Dominican people, very, very friendly.
How's the summers?
Summers are great, but
Summers,
there's not a lot of...
I wouldn't have liked the summers.
A little too hot?
Oh man, too hot.
Yeah.
Everybody going around saying it's cold, and I'm laughing at them because I used to be up in Iowa and lived up there. I even pastored churches up there, and when I was a religious guy, and the winters were very cold, and I loved every second of it.
Okay.
So yeah, Chris, how did you get to come here? How was your approach to come here and do what you're doing?
Actually, when I came here, my wife, we had left the Dominican Republic. We'd been there for 8 years, and we were just looking for just a place for me to fit in with my gifts and my abilities, and just looking to see where God was leading us. And my wife is from South Georgia, and we knew we wanted to be close to family, so we were looking around, and we had heard about this center, the Samaritan Counseling Center. And there had been people working on the center for years before I came into the picture.
Yeah.
People who were praying and raising support, people who were very encouraging. They were raising financial support as well as just just prayer support for it. People who had a vision for a counseling center that really met the needs of the person, not just on an emotional level, but seeing people as emotional, physical, mental, relational, spiritual, and trying to address all of those issues as we address people's problems.
Well, how exactly did you hear about the Samaritan Counseling Center?
Actually, the first week I got back to Georgia, I saw an ad in the paper, and that was it.
Really?
Yeah. I saw an ad in the paper, and I actually I sent in my resume the first day or the first week I saw it. A month later, hadn't heard anything. Saw the ad again. I sent in my resume again with another letter, and then the third month, I saw the ad again. I sent in my resume thinking, this is me. This is what I do. I do Christian counseling.
So you're persistent.
I was persistent, and I just thought, man, this is exactly what I do. And had been offered some other positions, and they didn't feel right, so I was turning them down. And just wondering, is this the right thing to turn down? But it didn't feel right, so I was turning those down, but persistent about this. And I turned down one position, not too far from here. And about 2 days later, I got a call from people here in Bainbridge saying, "Hey, come down. We want to meet you and talk more with you." And that's what I heard about.
So how long did it take for the interview before you actually got the job?
I think I interviewed. They gave me the call. It was like the week of Christmas.
What a great time to call.
Oh, yeah. Great Christmas gift. Yeah, great present. I think I came to interview like the first weekend in February. We came, and then by the end of February, we had moved here, and I think I had started in the office on March 1st, which was actually about 3 years ago. 3 years ago this week.
So now that you're here, what's your clientele? Do you see a lot of people from different counties even?
We do. Definitely the majority of people we see are from the Bainbridge area. But we're seeing people from Blakely, from Colquitt, from Camilla, Yeah, I mean, you know, from Seminole
So
County.
it has a big outreach.
It really does. There's not a lot there yet, but we're still expanding, still spreading out.
Okay.
So we're excited about it. We've seen a lot of growth in the numbers of people that we're actually able to help.
We're going to be talking about something about mental illness.
Okay.
And mental illness is people who, like me, I'm mentally ill.
Okay.
I have schizoaffective disorder, bipolar
Mm-hmm.
type, and you'll be talking a little bit about schizoaffective disorder in a minute. But people who have mental illness sometimes have this stigma, and we'll be talking about that later, but where they were afraid to come out and admit they have a problem because afraid of what other people think.
Yeah.
And they don't need to be scared about that, do they?
No, they don't need to be afraid, and I think it really depends on your social circles, who you interact with, and it depends on where you live. You know, in a place like Bainbridge, you know, I mean, it's a different setting than Atlanta. In Atlanta, very common to go see a counselor, a therapist. You know, and not so much here, and yet it's a thing that is definitely more accepted than it was years ago.
Right.
It's something that people realize it's better to get help for a problem if you have a problem than to just ignore it.
Tell us a little bit about schizoaffective disorder.
Schizoaffective disorder is definitely one of those things, not a lot of people are familiar with the name or what it really is. And just in a nutshell, and you could probably explain this a whole lot better than I can, but really in a nutshell, it's almost like two disorders in one. It's something that really affects the psyche. There's a psychosis. There's something about the thinking or the thought process that are not clear, that are not aligned, and yet at the same time it affects the affect, the emotional level. Sometimes it's with people who have bipolar, which is extreme emotional swings, you know, from manic to depressive. You've got that. Mm-hmm. And for some people it's not the bipolar, for some people it's just major depression. And so you're still seeing that very strong emotional effect on them, and then they're struggling in those areas. You know, and so it's two very strong issues going on at the same time. The psyche, which is already affected by bipolar or by depression anyway, but then you add in, you know, a lot more confusion, a lot more disorientation. Sometimes there's a hallucination. Sometimes there's just more issues going on there, you know, mentally.
I'll tell you, for me, it goes in cycles, and I take medication called Geodon.
Okay.
And it treats the schizoaffective disorder, and also treats the bipolar disorder too. I had this thing, and people think I was afraid to ask for help, Chris, because I was afraid people would think I was crazy. But the way I was acting, it was crazy.
It was great. Okay.
I would have this fixation about the Men in Black, you know, Area 51, and you could talk to me until you was blue in the face, and I still would be convinced that I was being recorded, being spied on, in danger of being kidnapped by the government.
Okay.
And then people think, oh, wait a minute, you're crazy, but that's the way it was untreated. And the bipolar, I have extreme behaviors, and one of them, I was addicted to pornography. And people say, whoa, wait a minute, why do you want to share all that? Well, Chris, I found that when I had my bipolar disorder treated, that desire went away.
Okay.
How would you explain that?
You know, part of it I think
You got
is,
about 30 seconds.
in a nutshell, really quick, is having some of those emotional needs met. Whereas before you were on the medication, your emotions, your thoughts were extreme. They were going to extreme levels, up and down. And then all of a sudden, with the medication, it became a little more balanced. And so you were able to control more of it instead of it controlling you as much.
Okay. We'll be back in a moment. You're watching Ranting Lunacy. I'm your host, Dana. This is Chris B. from the Samaritan Counseling Center.